to get into a lot of this. Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland, he is the ranking Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee. Thank you, Congressman, for waking up. Or it's not that early anymore. It's 9 o'clock. You should have been up. But I want to get to something that you are up to. You are hoping to get past the No Carte Blanche Act. And this is something that would basically help to end Trump's slush fund in the IRS settlement. You need 218 votes. You know that better than I do. Are there Republicans willing to sign it? Do you believe Mike Johnson will bring it to the floor? Because this is obviously something that Donald Trump is still obsessed with.
Well, that's the big test. Of course, Mike Johnson will not voluntarily bring it to the floor, but that's what the discharge petition process is all about. And we've been governing essentially by discharge petition. The Republicans obviously have no plans, no programs, no policies for the country, but we have been able to move a number of things through the discharge petition process. And look, there are two parts to Donald Trump's fraudulent settlement with himself. One is this $1.776 billion political slush fund money that is given to him in order to give to the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, the other cop-beating convicted criminals who are his private militia. The other part of it is an absolute amnesty, a self-pardon for him, his family, and all of his businesses, not just from criminal prosecution, but from civil prosecution. It goes further even than the Supreme Court's decision to immunize him from criminal prosecution for felonies that he commits in office. So, the Attorney General has said, oh, it's not moving forward. Of course, if you're in a car and you're at a stop sign, you're not moving forward, but 5 seconds later you are. And the minute, anybody looks away, they're going to be moving forward with this. They already gave millions of dollars to Michael Flynn, to the Carter Page, to the family of Ashley Babbitt. And this is what they want to do. It's like, who wants to be a mega millionaire? And so we need to put it into law that they cannot use our money like this. It's completely unconstitutional both to give the president any money beyond his salary in office, but also to give anybody money in order to compensate them for insurrection.
Congressman, we were just talking about the lack of evidence that this administration provides on a range of issues and arguments that they make. One of the biggest ones is when they claim that there is widespread voter fraud, which there is no evidence for, that undocumented immigrants are voting illegally in elections. And you know well that the president is really trying to push Republicans in Congress, in the House and in the Senate, to pass that SAVE Act, which would provide documentary proof of citizenship, restrict mail voting. I want to play for you how Republicans are talking about this and are pushing this in a swing state like Pennsylvania. Here's your colleague, Dan Muser, in Pennsylvania just this week.
The latest effort has been to shield every one of the 15 million illegal immigrants in our country by defunding ICE and Customs and Border Patrol. And why? Here's what they're after. Blanket amnesty for all, including the criminals. And if you don't believe me, ask them privately. They'll tell you. To count illegals in the census and to one day turn them into all voters.
They're accusing Democrats of wanting to turn undocumented immigrants into voters and have them vote illegally. How are you and other Democrats confronting this ahead of the midterms and trying to challenge it? Because, as you know, so many voters end up sometimes believing the president, despite the lack of evidence.
Well, it's a pack of lies, of course, and we're doing everything in our power to refute them, stop them in court, and to defend the power of the states to run our elections, which has been the American system since the Constitution was written. Donald Trump is obviously the only one who's trying to commit election fraud. We saw that numerous times in the 2020 election when, he called up Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger in Georgia and said, just find me 11,780 votes. That's all I'm looking for. He tried to get his own Department of Justice to call the election a fraud. They wouldn't do it because there was no evidence for it. William Barr told him all of his claims were BS. And then 60 different federal and state courts rejected every claim of election fraud and election corruption. that he was making. So Joe Biden beat him by more than 7 million votes, 306 to 232 in the Electoral College. That's just a matter of historical fact, even if Donald Trump can accept it. But he's not actually trying to prove that he won that election, nor is he trying to prove any of these nonsensical claims about voter fraud taking place in the country other than what he's doing. He's just trying to exercise control over the Republican Party. And this is how cults, political cults and religious cults work, that you have to accept the lies of the leader. And he uses that as a litmus test for political loyalty. And that's really what's going on to get everybody behind him. So when he tries his next caper, his next attack on our constitutional democracy, he will have people behind him, because what he cannot tolerate is any kind of free thinking and actual interaction with the real world.
Civilians in this country have been doing absentee voting, mail-in voting since 1896, and no one's had a problem until Donald Trump came on. Sorry, Jackie, go ahead.
Congressman, I want to ask you about some news that broke overnight, or actually late yesterday, from our colleague David Rode. And this is the choice by Bill Pulte, the acting director of national intelligence, to install another election conspiracy theorist in a high-ranking position. He chose as his chief of staff a GOP election lawyer who oversaw a poll-watching program that included Jack Posobiec and other conservative conspiracy theorists. The lawyer, Christina Norton, also appears to have no experience working in the intelligence community. I guess two questions for you. Have you heard any sort of update on whether or not the Jay Clayton nomination is going to be put back on the agenda? And then two, what is your takeaway looking at the appointment of Bill Pulte and now Christina Norton about what Trump wants Pulte to accomplish in this acting capacity?
Yeah, I don't have any inside information on that, Jackie, but I will tell you that this just confirms, what we've been saying and what's in the regime change book, which is the only job qualification is absolute political loyalty and devotion to Donald Trump. So when they decide whatever their attack on the rule of law is going to be, everybody will follow along in tow and just utter their talking points. But, right now we have federal courts across the land that are rejecting their various attempts to take over the election process. 9 different federal courts have rejected the claim that the president, by executive order, can compel the states in the union to turn over all of their voter lists to Donald Trump and to the White House. The Constitution, of course, provides no role whatsoever for the president in the administration of either presidential or congressional elections. So they appear to have given up on engaging in any public policy that would actually motivate anybody to vote for them. Now they're just looking for ways to interrupt the election. And the election is, just around 125 days away. So they're getting increasingly desperate at this point.
Not that anyone's counting. Congressman Jamie Raskin, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate your time.